a little bit, and when
Okay.
when you see this
Rose
hit
is an
30,
Apache.
Yeah.
then you
It's
just,
on.
And a
you just let it
Mescalero.
go. It's on. So just tell them when it's 30 seconds, and then they'll start serious.
Okay, there's,
Recording.
it's on 13.
Okay, when it's at 30.
Can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you, Catherine. It's good
You're
to see
welcome.
you again.
It's good to see you too.
I'll see you again.
All right.
Good luck with your
I
paintings.
think it's commendable that you came all the way here to do this.
All right, Catherine,
Yeah, for history's
you're going to
sake.
see your mother, right?
Yeah. I might have dinner up there. I'll call you later.
Okay.
Bye, Rose. Thank you.
All right. take
Listo?
care. Kind of. I screwed up here. Yeah, lista.
Is it on?
It's recording.
It's red?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, so my question to you was, where are you staying in San Francisco? You told me that you were staying in North Beach. Now, when you hit the city, you came in on Greyhound bus, didn't you?
Uh-huh.
You came in on the Market
That's the
Street.
way I first came there.
Wasn't that the Market Street Greyhound that you came to the Market Street station?
I don't even know if it was there. It may have just been there. It was starting to go into, be demolished.
Oh, okay. All right, so then you made your way to North Beach. Did you have a direction? Did you know you were going to meet there? Where you were going to go?
I was meeting my friend Randy Blackfox, who I knew in Hollywood, in the Fairfax district.
And you knew Randy because Randy did what?
Randy was just a player and hung around with a lot of those people from Hollywood. His favorite friend there was Bernardo.
Oh yeah, Bernardo died recently. He's a friend of Hammond's, very good friend of Hammond's.
I know, he mentions him in the book.
Yes, indeed. Bernardo was a player in Hollywood, very much so.
So, I mentioned that to him when I sent him, an email. I said I knew Randy Blackfox, but he didn't know Randy. I don't think he did.
He left early. So, what's interesting about this story so far is that you left Hollywood before the Manson murders.
Right.
The Manson murders happened right after, pretty much, you leave, 70.
Yeah.
Which changes the whole landscape of Hollywood, as you well know.
The Manson is the 70s?
1970 is when the Manson murder takes place at Sharon Tate's house. Now, what's important about this, Carl, is that once the Mansons...
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, because I was in high school. I know. We used to go up there Halloween. Now, what's interesting about the Manson murder is that it changed the way that not just Hollywood, but the way the nation looked at freaks and hippies. They were now cast in a different light because of Manson. And that's when a lot of the heavy-handed policies of the government began to crack down on hippies.
Uh-huh.
You left before the Manson.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so you weren't...
But Applebaum did entertain them. He entertained... I don't know this for sure because I was not there. But my understanding was from the hearsay or people telling me that he had kind of had a shooting gallery in Vito's. He had rented Vito's. Everything was intact. You could use the basement. You could use the... But he had a shooting gallery there with with heroin.
Makes sense.
Also, I heard he killed somebody with his car.
Hit and run?
Yeah, and it happened on the freeway or something. And he was jailed for it, and he got out of it somehow.
Well, I know he went to jail for being a second-story booster. Right, because I met him when he got out of jail, and that was in '74. But leaving Applebaum aside, did Applebaum have a relationship with the Manson family?
Oh, that's what I heard. See, you got to remember, there was a lot of women that he went to Fairfax High School. So
Applebaum.
He knew all those people.
That's where I went, right.
So, he could entertain those people easy. Those are the people that we always sloughed off. They didn't want to dance, and they just wanted to be, they wanted to be peripheral people.
Parasites.
They could never come into us because they weren't the trained dancers that we were.
Right.
So when when Vito turned the key over to Applebaum, he had a good relationship with Coopernick, who
Mhm.
owned that building.
Mhm.
And later on, he took my place on the third floor.
Mhm.
Uh, he did whatever he wanted.
Now, so you're in San Francisco staying with Randy?
I got my own room. I had enough money to pay for a room for a couple of days.
And then you went out and looked
And
for
then
work.
the girl said that, and so I immediately went down there because I didn't know if I was going to be able to stay there that night.
So she gives you a voucher, moves you to another hotel.
Yeah, and I got a social worker that was ready to take me, throw me off of welfare. She says, "Well, we're thinking about that. You should go and get some work." That's what she said to me. So the day that I was to meet with her, and she was going to tell me that, it was raining, and I walked from North Beach all the way over to Mission and Van Ness. That's where the the second kind of place where ATD was, and I had filed for ATD. So she said she came, and oh yeah, and I had a ball cap on, and I was soaking wet. I'm waiting to see her. Puts me in a small room, looks at me. I'm in the most dejected situation that I could think of, and she says, "No, I think I'm going to keep you on this, and I want you to get ATD." So she went with me to the psychiatrist, and as when the psychiatrist brought me into this room, it was a dark room, and I did whatever he asked me to do, and so forth. And when he came out, he says to her on the QT, "I wouldn't go home with this guy, because this guy's schizophrenic. You don't know what he's going to do." So anyway, her and I became really close friends, almost to the point where we were boyfriend and girlfriend. We would see each other for coffee and stuff, and then she introduced me to her daughter and stuff like that. So I got scared, but also at the same time, Vito said, "Why don't you move up here? If you got ATD," I was in this woman's father was a manager of a hotel on Sutter, I think.
Mhm.
So she got me in a really nice hotel, maid service, everything. You see? So I got I got scared about her because she was married. You see? So it meant that I was going to go through some kind of a marriage thing with her. So I moved up north. She came and visited me once, I think, and brought her daughter, and that was the end of our relationship.
So Vito calls you when you're living in the hotel.
No, I knew he was up there. I just wanted to see him. I got on a bus and went up there.
You didn't see him when he was in Sausalito, though.
No,
Okay.
he's already found Cotati.
And he's got the
living there
house.
6 months. He's rebuilding the house that he's in, and he's also stonemasoning the place.
But he's not doing any art. And he's not doing...
That's the art he's doing.
Right, but I'm saying he's not doing any dancing or any paintings or sculptures.
No. But he's going all the time to Sonoma State and starting to do his own dance class.
And
that
was then Morehouse over near the A&W Root Beer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and he became friends with them. We all did.
Behind Guido's Pizza.
Yeah.
Remember Guido's?
Yeah, sure.
And so he's going over there. Meanwhile, he's gotten himself now a little piece of the rock. The college is starting to get larger. I think they purchased the property for the campus probably around that time.
Right.
And
They built a couple of the buildings.
now, a couple of the buildings. Now, meanwhile, 1970 is right around the corner, or it's turning 1970
I
shortly.
moved there the first day of 1970.
Okay. Tony Novak Sutley, Irv Sutley, Steve Laughlin,
Right.
Michael, who owns the bookstore.
Become the
You know Michael, who owns the bookstore in Santa Rosa?
I don't know.
Okay. Chuck Idelson, and a number of other people that I could mention.
Which bookstore?
Michael owns a bookstore, one of the ones on 4th Street, I think. One of the fancy ones.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah?
Eeyores, he used to be. Anyway, he was a Sonoma State radical leftist guy. He's in the Communist Party as well. They're working now against the war over at Sonoma State College, as well as using the Peace and Freedom Party, trying to get registration for it, right?
Yeah.
When does the movement start to move around Cotati? When does Cotati start to become an enclave?
With Vito. So Vito happens to go there. We happen to go there, and then those people got elected to office,
Right, Laughlin got to be
Lombardi.
mayor. Lombardi was on there, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
and it started to move that way. And I become the commissioner of parks. Did you know I was commissioner? of
You were
parks?
commissioner. I worked with you as a commissioner when you were commissioner of parks for rerouting the traffic around the hub.
Yeah,
You and I
yeah.
worked together on
Yeah.
that. But this is 70 now I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well,
No,
70 is
the free
very
store hadn't
barren.
started.
There's no park.
No.
There's no park. There's still the Red Grocery and Lombardi's. That's
Right.
that's where you got your food.
Redwood Market, the
And
Redwood.
everything is
Right.
It's almost. It was just barely paved at that time.
There was no Roanoke Park.
Yeah.
Right?
Well.
Jimmy Rogers came along in the late 60s and
Uh-huh.
bought a great
Yeah.
deal of Roanoke Park.
Yeah.
But it hadn't been developed. I lived on Alicia Avenue in 74. I remember there were 4
There
or 5
were
apartments.
hardly any
Nothing.
houses, and there was no houses behind. There was farmers market. That was the market in Cotati, but there were no houses back there. Those
No.
were fields.
Right. But there was the 8 Ball.
Yes.
And there was behind
And
the 8 Ball.
Yes.
And behind the 8 Ball lived Richard Nixon's cousin,
Yes.
along with.
And I was involved with her.
Okay, well, what's the story? What was that story? First of all, what's her name? What was her name?
Her name was Kathy Timberlake,
Okay.
and she was his first cousin. I met her in Hollywood. I remembered when I met her, I had a party at my house with my brother and his wife.
What year?
65.
All right.
Yeah, 65.
Okay.
Lenny Bruce was invited to the party. My brother and his wife tried to do a number on the bed in front of everybody where they were bawling each other. They never could. He couldn't get a hard on. She was a really good-looking girl, and he had found her she was a bank teller that had somehow absconded with her the money in San Francisco, and had escaped and went to Mexico. And on her way trying to come back, all the money was gone, so she's trying to get back through the border, and they busted her. And that was it. So he married her. Anyway, he married her, and she was in Hollywood with him at this time.
So Timberlake comes to the party?
Anyway, Timberlake comes to the party. She just a stray. I don't know. I didn't invite her. Somebody asked her, and I take her up on the roof of the place where the elevator shaft was. Her and I commenced to have a situation up there, and she liked me, and she was a very full bosomed woman. And she was really short. She was small and really cute looking woman. I have a really good painting of her still. I still have it in my bedroom. And she came there, and her and I became friends. And she followed us up here, like Applebaum did.
Right, now we're going to get to that stage in just a minute. I want to get the story of that, but I'm trying to just picture for anybody that ever watches this exactly what it looked like in 1970 up here. And you had you had the trade winds, didn't you?
Trade Winds was there. The Inn of the Beginning was there.
The end of the beginning and the trade winds, and then you had the
Run by a
Lombardi's
political-
Market,
Yeah.
and then you had where Oliver's is now market,
Farmers. It was
Farmers Market it was
Farmers Market.
called.
Yeah.
And then you had Kairos. Wasn't Kairos there?
Kairos, but where was Kairos?
Kairos was right
Downtown?
downtown near the Exchange
Yeah,
Bank.
Yeah. Next door.
And you had the Exchange Bank
yeah,
there.
and then, I don't.
The co-op wasn't there then, was it?
Was the co-op in there? I
Co-op
think
was next to the Exchange Bank,
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
head shop is now.
Yeah.
Was used to
Yeah.
be the co-op.
Yeah.
Was that there?
Yeah, the co-op was there.
It was
That's right.
there. So you did have
It was
a.
hippie grocery store.
So there was a contingent of hippies up here before
Oh,
Vito
sure.
moved up here.
But you remember, the first thing that the hippies did up here, when I came there, was no, it was called. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. It had to do with the town. You see, where the last great hiding place was a long building, and it housed. Vito had a shop in there. I had a shop in there.
There was a dentist, I think, that was in there or something at the time.
Yeah, and it was like a hippie department store.
Yes, yes.
And
or a
Sue-
hippie mall, a mini,
Yeah,
tiny mall. Yeah, yeah.
Mini mall, and Randy Blackfox and his wife had the first place, and they sold all the hippie stuff, like.
Right.
And it became that the place next door was it you
The head shop.
The head shop next door was their shop.
I
They were the
see.
#1 shop.
Okay.
There was a record store in there. A guy by the name of John had, and then I opened up a place that was an art gallery.
Oh,
and
you
later
did?
later on, I had an ice cream store in there.
Really?
Yeah, and then Jerome had a place in the back where he sold photographic equipment.
Oh, I had no idea. Okay, so that was the mini mall. Then,
There was also a free store in there.
well, who started the free store?
Vito, I think.
That was the first location of the free store
That's
before it
right.
moved over to the park.
Yeah. No, it moved her a walkway, a stairway, and then it moved over to the field, and that's when it burned down a couple of times.
In a barn type of structure. Then you had the laundromat there, of course, in downtown Cotati at the time.
Yeah, it was where today is.
Threadbare Kid.
Yeah.
Right. There was a
And
laundromat.
Threadbare Kid was in that department store.
Oh, she was.
That's where she started.
Okay.
She was
No,
just
then
a
you had
seamstress.
Martha. You had Martha and the other woman across the street cutting hair and a.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know the woman that. There was also there were 2 leathersmiths there. Martha was one of them, and then there was another woman, who I know through her son, who works for at CMC at Community Media.
You don't know her. You don't remember her name.
I don't remember her name, but I liked her, and she all through the things that happened there with bands coming through there. She had that leather smithy.
That's
And
right.
then
It's right
she-
next door,
Yeah, it was actually in the place.
and it was hardly ever open.
Yeah, that's
Remember?
right. That's right. And Martha split from her and got that little cubby there, and still is in exist. They had this year, they did a cover story on her in the newspaper.
Did they really?
Or the Sunday thing.
She used to be a very large cocaine dealer in this county for many,
Uh-huh.
many years.
Yeah.
Also you had, at this time, you had the small city hall, but you didn't have the park. Or the park was
The
just
park
there,
was not.
like it is today.
The park was not official. It was the first time we did a band in the park. Somebody pulled in went to that trucking thing that made truck backs, truck things, and borrowed a truck thing and brought it over there, and the band was on there.
And no doubt,
There was no bandstand. Then Vito built the bandstand.
right. And then, of course, you had Tula and Sam Jaffe, her father, there at the time, right?
Yeah.
and Tony the dog catcher. Now, what was it? When you first came up, did you stay with Vito when you first came up?
I first stayed with Vito, and how did I do that? I stayed with him quite a.
He built a small place in the back, didn't he?
Yeah, he had built that, and it had burnt. His next door neighbor burned it down because he didn't like Vito, and one day Vito had put a black star on the back end of on the roadside. We had friends back there. We knew all the people in the back across the road at Vito's. You remember those people that they were all leftists? The guy that was in the wheelchair.
Tony and Anthony.
Anthony.
Anthony. Yeah, I know him. He's at Sonoma State now.
Yeah.
Oh God, what's his last name? I'll think of it. But yes, I know where you.
Yeah.
Mean.
So
Beverly Carrillo was over there.
Yeah.
With her husband,
Right,
who's now a
right.
cop in Texas.
That was after.
That was after.
As soon as that man burnt the place down,
Mm-hmm.
the authorities knew he did it,
Oh, they did.
and they hauled his ass to an old soldier's home or something. And the woman said, "I can't live here," and his wife, "She can't live here." And then they sold it to Beverly and her old man.
And her old man, yeah. Beverly just recently passed away.
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay.
And the girl, she has a daughter. She had a daughter, I remember, who was good friends with the kids because they were her age.
When they played together on the street, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, they were neighbors.
Right.
Walk across the.
So what did you do there when you first arrived? What kind of things did you do? What was a day like for you?
I was involved with. You mean in Cotati?
Yeah,
I
what
was
was
involved with the place that I said was. And I remember there was a picture. I don't know if I have it or not, but there was a picture of there was no nobody in Cotati. So I remember somebody dressed up in an Indian feathers and stuff, and we all went to the middle of the street and to stop traffic to get somebody to come into the place because nobody was coming in there. There was nobody there.
It said population 2,800 on the sign at the
Yeah,
time, remember?
something like that.
Yeah, very small population. Though it had 14 bars within a 1 mile radius.
I don't remember what was in Jerome's, but there was another store in Jerome's before Jerome.
And so so you had the various small businesses, kept yourself alive, but you were still on ATD, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Now,
We started to go to the to the college,
Okay.
and because of theater and dance, and Ann Woodhead and Nancy Lyons vouched for us. They were going to hire Vito as a dance instructor.
Were
out
they
there.
really?
But I think they found out his past was a little bit too shady for them.
You mean
as a
being in the jail and stuff?
well, I think it was the dossier he had in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did
So,
they get? How were they?
I don't know what it was, but something happened, and he never mentioned what happened. But he told me that something happened with those teachers who had encouraged him. Yes, we want Vito as a dance teacher out there. And then he didn't do it, and then they gave him a room of his own. They gave him an experimental class.
Was he able to get students?
Yeah, he had tons of students.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was dancing like him.
And what about the relationship with Hollywood at this time? Is there still communication back and forth?
Back and forth.
Zappa is still involved in Vito's life, your life, or no?
Zappa is sending me telegrams to come down and do another album. It was Frank Zappa at the Roxy.
Yeah,
I remember.
Sure.
And I'm on the cover.
Why didn't you go back?
I told Frank Zappa a long time ago. See, Frank Zappa wanted me to go to New York with him. When he made. See, what happened in Hollywood was he made a break with us, and when he made a break with us, it was like you know, he shot himself in the foot because we all had a thing together, but he was out on a limb by himself now, and Herbie Cohen wasn't very good, and he also had dumped his original manager. So Hollywood knew about that stuff, and they didn't like it. So Frank said, Herbie says, "Listen, I got a thing going in New York City. I was brought up there. I can get you work, and I can get you a place to play every night if you want." So they moved to the West Village.
Mm-hmm.
He asked me to go.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Do you want to go with me?" I says, "You mean and get Herbie to kill me?" Because he was to me, Herbie Cohen was the local mafia in the West Village. So I wasn't going to move there.
So you told Vito no.
I
I mean, Zappa no.
I said no, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
But when he came looking for a place to live, I gave him my place. That's what I told you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And she said, when I went to see Gail a year or so ago, she says, "Here's what happened. Do you remember this, Carl?" She says, "I was in a convertible, and we had stopped at Lookout in Laurel,
I know it well.
red light, and all of a sudden a voice came and said, 'I know you're looking for a place. Get over here. This is the place right here.'" And she's looking around. She didn't know. She couldn't see where I was. And then she figured it out. They did a turn, and they came in there, and
That was it.
They got the place.
What was it's going back a little bit in time though. What was the most exciting thing about living at the log cabin house? What did you find to be the most beneficial? What was it in your history at that time that you enjoyed the most?
The people that came there, and the women that came there. I was never really alone there, and also you got to remember that it had a hillside, and people went nude up there. And there was a cave. That girl that I said was at that march. I had a love affair with her instantly. I never saw her before in my life. I walked in the cave. There she is, standing there. I just came up and put my arms around her, and it was instant love affair. And her and I, she came and stayed with me for a week or so, and she was going to Chenard. She was an artist from Chenard, and but she couldn't deal with Vito, and I don't think she wanted to dance. Mm-hmm. So if you were an artist and couldn't get involved with the dance, you were like sick. But she told me that there were times when she sat in the front with Vito and I, in Vito's bus. Mm-hmm. And the other women in the back were very upset at her being favored like that. And she was really a good-looking girl, and I don't know if Vito and I shared her at all. I don't know. I don't remember that, but I do know that I remember her, and she got a hold of me on the computer.
Oh, really good. Just
Yeah.
recently?
2 years ago, and she wouldn't let me go to where she lived in Monterey. There's another little city in Monterey. It's something Grove or something like that. And she wouldn't let me come down there.
What, she changed her life and her
And
social
she changed-
class or
she-
something?
Well, her husband and her had bought one of those small houses on those streets. They were originally just for summer houses, but she had bought one, and she lived there for 25, 30 years. So that property is worth a lot of money. I don't know if she sold it or not, but she did live there, and she had children there
I see.
and grandchildren.
Oh,
So she was taking care of her grandchildren, and I don't think she wanted me to come down and start an affair with her again.
So after when you staying with Vito at his place, did you eventually get your own place or what?
I'm trying to remember where I moved to. Oh, I know where I moved to. Exactly. I moved behind the 8 ball.
You did. Which
Yeah.
number?
I lived in number 3. I lived
Okay.
in number 3,
I lived in 7.
and
Dusty Dawn was back there at the time?
did you live next to Dusty? Wait a
I
minute.
live right next to Dusty.
So you lived on this. You lived next door to his daughter,
Whose daughter?
Mr. Jaffe.
Tula. No, Tula had moved by. No, I met Tula
Were you by
when.
the creek or the other?
No, I was by the creek.
Oh, so you lived.
I was
in,
right near the pink
you
house, but
lived
on the
in-
other side.
You lived in Tula's house.
I might have.
Yeah, you did. Because if you lived next to the creek,
Yeah,
the
I
creek
did.
was right
Yeah.
there. That's where Tula lived.
Because she moved and had SSI build her a house under FDA.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. I told her to do it.
Okay. So you
It
were on
wasn't SSI. It was an FHA.
ATD. It was FHA loan, but because she was on SSI, she could.
And she had a beautiful daughter that became a ballerina.
Jennifer, I think is her.
Jennifer, yeah.
So at this time, then Tula was there when you came,
Yeah, we were friends.
right? And Tony, the dog catcher, was there or no?
He didn't live there, no. But
No.
see, later on, after I moved from Jaffe, I moved to where Loretta's house was on, I don't know the name of the street, but it was the same, actually the same. It was right next, across to that church that had a Jewish star and a cross.
Was it Olaf?
Is it- No, that's not Orloff. That's wait a minute. It's a continuation street of, I don't know, when the freeway was put through there, it was a street that went to the other side, the
Oh,
west
okay.
side. See?
I see.
But Loretta bought a house there. She got a windfall from, I think, an aunt that died,
Right.
and she bought a house.
What year?
77.
Okay, so she wasn't there. She was much younger, so she wasn't there in 70, was she? 1970.
I put her together with Vito
You did what year?
when we were doing Free Store.
That was 74.
74.
Right.
And
So that
she
was
got I think she got the windfall. She used to live in Nevada, it's the next town to Reno.
Carson?
No, it was I think it's where they did Misfits
All right.
with Marilyn Monroe. Anyway, she that favorite aunt that she lived there with, because I think she was I don't think she had any parents.
I see.
Gave her money, and she bought the house, but she was really stoked on Vito, so she was living in 2 places. Actually, when I lived in her house, she was not living there. Tony and that big tall Russian,
Oh, Vigdor.
Vigdor, and Tom Dunphy,
Yeah.
they all lived in the house.
I see, but that was later. That's close to the late 70s. Because Dunphy didn't come up until late 70s.
Yeah,
All right, well, let me ask you this now then.
75, that's when it was.
When Vito came up to Katati, he just had Sue as his wife, right? He didn't have a whole bunch of women.
And Groovy.
He didn't have women in entourage.
I don't think Vito had to worry about it. They soon found him.
Yeah, but my question is when did he put together 2 things? One, the entourage of the women, the harem that he had, and secondly, Free Store itself.
There were women that were coming here from Hollywood to do him. I remember a girl, I have a photo of her over there. She's one of the second wave of groupies. There were 2 waves
All
of
right,
groupies.
explain the waves.
The wave was the groupies that were dancers that broke off from us and became the GTOs.
Right.
And then the second wave were these other girls. One was called Brenda, and the other one was called, wait a minute, Brenda, and What was the second picture of? I don't know. I can't remember. But there's a photo over there on the wall of those two. And see, some of them were part of the GTOs who didn't quite make it.
Right.
But these girls, Qatari. Qatari. Did you know
Oh, I
Qatari?
remember Qatari.
So that was Vito's favorite. Qatari was his secret favorite girl, Qatari. And I remember looking in a keyhole, watching them doing a number. But she came to stay up here too, and she stayed in the Redwoods in Monterio? No, Rio Neto.
Rio Neto.
Neto.
Sure.
Also, there was a young woman when I was still in San Francisco who I met. Her name was Harlow. She was one of those kind of women too. And she was a crazy poet. And I took her to SSI office, and my friend there said, my boss is a poet, Harlow. Do you mind me taking some of your poetry up to her office? Okay. She was down in 15 or 20 minutes and saying to Harlow, "You now have SSI."
Now, that brings me to the next question, which is, Aid to the Totally Disabled was enacted in 68.
Yeah,
Lenny got on it in 68.
yeah.
You got on it in 69. When did it turn to SSI?
Richard Nixon.
Oh, he turned it into federal program.
Yes,
So it became part of the Social Security
Yes.
Administration.
yes.
Now-
And that's how I got his. See, we didn't finish the story about. Kathy Timberlake.
But finish the story.
Kathy Timberlake was my next door neighbor behind the 8 Ball.
Right.
I don't recall who was in number one. It was somebody incidental, but Kathy Timberlake lived here. I lived in 2. She lived in 2. She had also another girl that lived there. Her name was Kathleen. I think Kathy just was Kathy, and a girl by the name of Kathleen who was a screwball that lived with her. And they lived together, and she didn't have any children yet. So, on the other side of me, Pam Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Pam Brown lived in 4.
All right.
Okay?
Dusty lived
Then
in-
Dusty lived in 5, and
And s-
then so forth.
Right.
Okay.
Who was in the Pink Palace?
There were some Jewish kids. I remember they just loved Lenny Bruce because I gave them an album. They wore the fucking thing out.
Okay. All right, so you're there. So finish the story with this Timberlake.
Anyway, she's got SSI, and then she gets knocked up. I don't think I knocked her up. I think she had another guy that she, knocked her up, and she's becoming really poor. She's, and she goes to She goes to the welfare to get welfare, and she says, my cousin is Richard Nixon. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just shine her on, right? So she's getting desperate. So I says to her, I know a way you can deal with this. I just can see exactly what to do. I said, go ahead and write Nixon a letter. But if you write him a letter, make sure that you write 5 other copies, okay? And when you send it to him, make sure you send it to the Chronicle, the Press Democrat, and so forth. So she does that.
And in the letter, she says what?
In the letter, she says, just what I just said.
I'm
She
poor,
goes,
I'm your cousin,
poor,
you're the
I'm
president.
I don't have nothing, and I can't get anything. They don't believe me. They think I'm lying. So,
Didn't all the press come?
yes, all of a sudden, one day, here's 10 people standing in front of her door.
With the trucks outside and the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes, the whole thing. So I said, Kathy, don't talk to them at the door. Go around to the field over here and do press conference over there. So she does, that marigold field.
It was a beautiful field.
Yeah, so she went over there and gave them all the information she wanted, and Richard Nixon, within 10 days, sent her a letter that said, God will take care of you, Kathy. Everything is going to be cool. And when she went back to the welfare, it's true.
They got her.
They took her to a place. I never saw anybody in welfare in my life that went to a warehouse and they said, take what you want out of this warehouse, okay?
Mm-hmm.
She got everything she wanted.
And that was what year that the cameras came? This was right before Watergate, wasn't it? It was 71, 72?
Yeah, she was up there. As soon as I moved there, all of a sudden she appeared.
So it must have been 70.
Yeah, and then one day I also have a painting of her cousin that showed up there, and she was a Milhouse.
Oh, okay.
You see?
Mm-hmm. And that's the Richard Milhouse
and
Nixon
this
connection.
is the way she was. She wore beautiful gowns all the time, beautiful, and she forever had a glass of wine in her hand. She didn't need any pills or anything like that. She just was toasty, drunk all the time. That was. I'll probably have her name on that thing, but she was a Milhouse.
That was quite a time living behind the 8 ball, wasn't it?
Yeah, it got looser all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you could go and dance at the inn, and
Right.
you know there was about that time. That place. I almost got the name of it. Burnt to the ground. This department store. It was owned. You know who owned it? Loop owned it.
Where was it located?
This is on I'm talking about, you know, where the head shop is now.
Right.
Well, that long building that's now, you may have had lunch there or breakfast.
It used to be the last great hiding place.
Yeah, but before that it was this place.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and Liza Loop bought this place. Her parents owned not Macy's, but one of the famous things in the East. She was her family had high money in one of those department stores in New York City
Right.
and Boston too, I think. So when she came out here, she married this kind of a funky guy whose name was Loop. And when I parked my car just a few minutes ago over there by the JC, the loops have they pierce your body. They're body piercers.
Oh, tattoo body piercing
Yeah.
place?
Yeah, and it's a tattoo store too.
So you're down there behind the 8 ball. I remember I was paying 40.
I paid $75.
I paid
last
90 when I was there.
time. Yeah.
Well, we split it, 45 apiece.
I paid $75,
You paid
and when I left to go to Loretta's house, he let me take furniture. I asked him.
All right. Now, and he owned the bar too. What's his name? The guy that owned.
Oh yeah, I know.
He
I
owned
know.
the bar. You wouldn't go in that bar if you were a hippie in those days.
No,
You'd get killed.
No. In fact, I remember a guy did get killed there.
Oh, really?
They found his body somewhere.
Yeah. I never went in there, even though I lived behind it. What was his name? I can't remember, and I'll have to
I know.
figure it out. But let me ask you this. So now, here's the next question I have about the Cotati experience. So, you have the politicos, peace and freedom, college campus radicals. You've got your cultural elements, dancers, yourself.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
Isha's wife,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
And Woodhead.
Ann Woodhead, Isha's wife, and then you have your college students living in the place,
Right.
in Cotati proper.
Yes.
You've got your cowboy culture and your old Follettis from
Yeah.
Italy.
Yes.
In the Petaluma area, you've
They
got
loved Danny, his Folletti's wife. No, sister loved Lenny.
Oh, they love the Follettis. Love Lenny.
Yeah.
At the end, I'll tell you a story off tape when
Yeah.
I do. But then you had Folletti. But then down in the Petaluma area, you had a very rigorous Jewish Communist Party contingent.
Right.
That
Still do.
That still do, and it's in the book that you might know, Communists and Chicken Feathers, one of the very famous books about the area that's
Is
come
that
out.
right?
Oh, very good. Very good. Jerome's family's involved in this. He's a red diaper baby.
Oh.
Okay, he's a red diaper baby. Now, this church, the temple down there, you have Morris Rappaport and Sam Rappaport. And then you have Marion Bloomfield that lived on East Katati. You might remember old Marion Bloomfield. This is a contingent that has arisen out of the progressive movement. Morris goes back to the IWW. His son was killed in the Civil War in Spain. All right, the reason I'm mentioning this to you because you have all these confluences going on at the same time. A very special brew is being brewed. Up in the mountains in Roberts Road area, you have some artists that are living up there. When did the large population of hippies start to arrive?
With Vito.
What did they heard about it in L.A. and took a bus and moved up, or what
There were
was?
lots of people that moved up.
Wednesday was
wanted-
one, for
wanted to-
example.
Yeah, Wednesday was one. They wanted to go to Sonoma State. They saw, it wasn't Sonoma State, it's
No.
a college.
It was
It took about 5 years to become a university. maybe
Right.
Longer.
But was it through you and Vito that people heard about the
Well,
area?
yeah, I would think that, and there were a lot of. Okay, you asked me a question before. Why didn't I go back to Los Angeles?
Right.
Well, I don't go back to Los Angeles because my brother's kind of people took over.
And what are your brother's kind of people? What do you mean by that?
Well, here's who they were. They were the kind of people that wouldn't confront the man like we did. When we went on this bus tour, those people don't even know what happened on the Sunset Strip. What happened on the Sunset Strip in that place that they had the riot in front of? The reason why we were walking on the street is just what we saw when we're on this bus. Everything is brand new, and all they have is one store after another that's high polished, whatever, high things that you see on TV and stuff like that. We didn't want that to happen. We were fighting for not to make that Sunset Strip commercial entity.
Just like we fought in Katati together.
That's right. Same thing. So, but as we're going on this bus, they had ripped down everything, almost everything, and those people that were running this thing didn't even know exactly where these places
Right.
were that were historical.
Well, when you say your brother's people took over, you mean
Okay, my brother's people were the kind of people that hid. If my brother wouldn't defend me, when I gave him a band, when I brought him into Hollywood and gave him his entity there, and told him how to deal with things, how to do a band, how to make money and stuff like that. When he didn't come to my defense, as when I got busted for this thing, because he knew all about it.
Mhm.
He knew all about it. So why would I go back to there and leave
see.
myself wide
I
open?
see.
And I don't have Vito there
I see.
anymore.
Right.
I'm going to move. I did eventually come back, and I moved because the fucking police came and visited me again
Where?
when I stayed in a hotel at Western and Hollywood Boulevard.
Why did they visit?
I'm practicing a saxophone that I was buying, and here they come. 10 cops come up to my place, and it just happened that I didn't that I had disrobed at that moment, and I just had a bathrobe on, and all right, it's a police guys in, and I made it known that those cops were seeing a naked man. When I opened the door, I was half naked, so they know if they're gonna do anything to me, they're gonna find a naked person.
Right. There's no gun planning. Right?
Yeah. So where's the gun? That's what they're saying to me. And there was the saxophone. So they were visiting me because I was protesting on Hollywood Boulevard about something.
What year?
1980.
Oh, you went back
Yeah.
in 80?
When you told me to move from when I had that situation on George Street with no, it wasn't on George Street. It was on the street that goes to the college,
East Catania?
East Catati. Remember, I was living with Loretta, and there was a girl, the crazy girl that lived with Applebaum, who took pins out of my Volkswagen bus, and she was
Not Barbara.
I don't know. He had a baby with her.
Oh, Debbie.
Debbie, yeah.
Debbie, the
Yeah.
the red hair.
So I couldn't deal with it, and Loretta was on his side. So I remember you saying, "Move to the Grove. It's
That's right.
cool,"
That's right.
and that's what I did.
But you went to Hollywood in 1980 and were
I
playing
went
that
to the
sax.
Gong Show.
And that's when you were playing the sax in the hotel.
Yeah.
And then the cops came, but the cops didn't know who you were at that time, did they?
Who knows? I don't know.
What a strange situation.
But I know I had protested about something
Yeah.
on Hollywood Boulevard in front of an ice cream store. So it could have been that. I don't know.
How strange.
But I know I was in this hotel, and they came and visited me. So
No, what about, what happened to
might
Nixon's
as well go back
cousins?
to Cotati.
Well, what happened to Nixon's cousin?
She stayed there a long time, and then I think she moved back to Orange County.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she was from Newport or one of those.
Now, my next question is when was Free Store put together in terms of a troupe that would go out in the park and dance?
73.
73? Whose idea was it?
It was Glenn's idea and Vito's idea.
Glenn and Vito sat down one night and were talking?
Yeah, and there was a book that was about a South American poet or a guy that had street theater.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, let's do a street theater. And up till then, I had been playing around with Glenn on the street, and we were doing Commedia dell'arte, because out at the university, whether it was a university or not, there was a troupe that we went to visit, and we saw what the silliness that they did, and then I started doing it with Glenn on the street. So
Were you in costume?
no, not yet.
Oh.
I just, my regular day thing, and I would just go after him constantly about it. And so he says, "Shit, we might as well make this a theater."
Well, how did Glenn
And I was
meet you two?
I don't know.
Oh, sorry, you were about to say
State,
something.
Sonoma State.
Oh, it's Sonoma State. So Glenn was at Sonoma
Yeah,
State.
but see, at that moment, I was ready to go back to Hollywood,
Oh, you
and
were.
they said, Vito says to me, "Stay here and see what this theater does."
Okay, but before you go on, why were you ready to go back to Hollywood?
I was getting bored.
Yeah, it's very rural up here at the time. Not a
Yeah.
lot to do.
Yeah.
Right. San Francisco seemed like a long way
Right,
away at
right.
55 miles, didn't it?
Yeah.
Away. And so you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe this is too podunk for me. I'll go back to the city.
Yeah.
And then Vito says, no, stay. Let's see what they
Stay
did.
and let's see what happens.
All right, what
And
happened?
we recruited 25 people that worked in the back of Last Great Hiding Place. There was a theater back
There
there.
sure was. Roger owned it.
And yes, and he said, "Get back there and get it going." So we did, and he's still alive, is he?
It's questionable. Roger had
He had
cancer
cancer several times.
several times, and it's doubtful that he's alive. Let's put it that way. I worked for him. Holly worked for him. Everybody worked for him.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is then when you got 25 people together for the troupe, you no doubt put notices up at the college and things.
Yeah.
And
But
then
locally, it was easy to go to the poles that were out in the street.
phone poles.
Yeah.
Candy used to put
Yeah.
stuff up. Remember Candy?
Yeah, right.
Whatever happened to her?
She moved to Santa Cruz or somewhere down there.
Or did she?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, but getting back to this now, so the troupe, so you got 25 people. how did Peggy and George, the mother and father of Leonardo DiCaprio, how did they get involved in the dance troupe?
Peggy was a student at Sonoma State. I think she was studying psychology.
Everybody
she was married to a man that was let me see. His father was the head of a union,
Okay.
and they have a lot of money, and they had moved. He had gone into retirement, his father, and moved to Mendocino, and had was involved with theater up there. But he had known my brother. Her and him had known my brother and had lived in their ashram that was almost downtown in L.A. There was one Echo Park area.
Okay.
So when she came up here, she knew that I was his brother. That was my brother.
That's a calling.
So she came to me and said, "Listen, I don't like what's going on in my life right now. I don't know what to do." She's very sad. And I live with this guy, and he's an asshole. And she says, during the Watts riots, he had gotten a gun and gone out and shot people.
Black people?
Yeah.
Well,
He's
that's the kind of guy.
a racist. Okay. So I don't like living with this guy, and I'd like to try something. So I said, "Come to the dance class." And she was really strong redhead, and she was a mover, you know, really one of those movers. And she had a little boy, a freckle-faced kid. He looked like him, but she had red hair too. See, so anyway, I suggested that, and she never stopped. We called her Big Red in Free Store, and she did her job. The only thing she was bad at was face painting.
Yeah, I noticed that in the picture you have over there. In fact.
Yeah, but she learned later on.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was down to 4 people, it was just her and I, and Loretta and Vito.
Right.
And he was dealing with both of them sexually. So I was upset that he was cutting me out for some reason. You know, he was doing that, and she was going along with it. But at this point too, I knew that her husband was right on her ass. So she lived on George Street, or not George, the next
Arthur.
She lived on.
Stop for a minute. This is telling me something that I don't know.
Oh.
It has a little tape thing. It looks like it says
It
cut.
may be over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have 58
tapes.
minutes and...
Yeah, we
okay,
have
so
to
let me
change tapes
stop
now.
this.
What time?
Mr. America,